So I recently got a PS4 finally, bit off and got one. I was like, I'm gonna get one when Spider-Man comes out, but went ahead and got one now because why not? And I was really looking forward to playing, exclusives, but what I was looking forward to was, of course, Horizon Zero Dawn, but besides that, number two was Detroit Become Human, an interactive story game by the developers known as Quantic Dream. This is of course, my first Quantic Dream experience for the most part. At the point of finishing Detroit Become Human, I've only played that game from them, and this is my talk about that game. So there will be spoilers ahead for at least my playthrough, so if you have not played it yourself or seen the intro bit, there is spoilers, so go ahead and play it for yourself. If you have a PS4, go ahead and play it. It's a fantastic experience for anybody who enjoys interactive storytelling games, for the most part, games like Telltale or Life is Strange, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and commence with my little talking about the game, because there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about with this game, and I just wanted to go ahead and just ramble on for like however long I want to talk and just talk about the game, because it is fantastic. It is a great game, and it deserves everything that's getting, plus more. It is fantastic. So the whole point of Detroit Become Human is that androids are now in our day-to-day lives, and they have now become engraved into society. They have, you can go ahead and purchase an android to go ahead and do housekeeping, take care of you, do various different jobs. There are worker androids. There's a bunch of androids everywhere taking over, man. And it tackles a bunch of things like, what happens when androids do what they want, or what happens when androids take over our jobs and things like that. Very, things you expect from a Android tale, but, it takes its own spin on it and does a really great job of telling its own story in the form of its three playable characters, who are, by the way, just great characters, all of them. There's three of them, of course. We have Marcus, Kara, and Connor, and they're all fantastic characters. If I had a gun to my head saying, hey, pick which one you want to live, I couldn't do it. I just give up at that point, They're too good. All of them, they're too good. Playing these three characters are like playing three different games, because they all play different. We have Connor, who is the detective type of android. We have Kara, who is, of course, the housekeeper, but then she comes to be a mother type android. And then we have Marcus, who is a caretaker android, who eventually becomes the deviant, I guess. He starts to lead the android revolution. And all of them play very differently, and they are very different, and that makes for a great type of story and gameplay. Now, for the most part, which one I enjoyed the most, like in terms of playing as, I definitely enjoy Connor the most, like playing as, his gameplay sequences, because his were very high on action, and his was also very detective wise. You have to go ahead and look around your environment, piece together things, and I do enjoy that quite a lot. I love, getting things right, and, looking around, finding clues and using those clues to go ahead and further my investigation. That makes for a great, type of gameplay for me, and the story for him was definitely really great. So I definitely do enjoy Connor's detective style role in the game. It was definitely a bunch of fun. Just looking around your murder scenes was so much fun for me. I definitely enjoy him quite a lot. And in terms of just like the whole, story of a character, I feel like I enjoyed Kara. The whole, Kara and Alice type story was definitely really sweet and heartwarming, man. Definitely really adorable, and I love that quite a lot. Now, Marcus, I wasn't sure what I felt about his story, but of course it was great. But I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with him, because he was wronged by, of course, some humans, and the one human that he cared about ended up, of course, dying. And I was like, man, we have people who are treating us androids like crap. What should I do with him? But for the most part, I enjoyed him because he was like the whole calm, rational type guy. That's how I played him, and it was definitely a lot of fun playing as him as well. So all three of these characters, great. They're all great. I love them so much. The story always kept me on my toes, and it was definitely a really awesome experience. Now, moving on to at least the story. Man, the story, the branches of the choices in the story. Now, this is a big part of the game. it's choices. When choices actually matter, when Telltale says choices actually matter, you're like, okay, they might matter, but you know, when they say it, Quantic Dream, they take it to a different extent, okay? Like their choices matter 10 times, tenfold, man. It's incredible how much the choices actually affect the storyline. Like, there's over, I believe I watched a dev diary from them. They said there's over 32,000 animations for the game, and they use about 300 actors for, you know, mocap scenes and animations and stuff like that. So that's incredible because they have to go ahead and branch and account for every choice you make. They do that. They take it to a different extent, to a whole nother level of choices actually mattering, where to a point where just scenarios that you think they wouldn't get to, it happens anyway if you choose that option. It's incredible. They put the work and effort into making every single choice matter to an extent. You know, some things, you know, that you wouldn't really expect doesn't have to matter, but things do matter. Like after each sequence, you see a flowchart of your choices, and there's some grayed out ones that have question marks that you don't get to see because you didn't really do it. And those are like other options in the story that you can go ahead and see. There's so much to each scene that makes it different, where different outcomes can, you know, affect different characters, affect your character, and affect what goes on in the story. Looking on YouTube, I don't really go ahead and like look at like some big things, but you know, every now and again I do see on the homepage like a scene that is completely different from what I experienced, and each time I see a scene, it's like a whole different scene than what I got. You know, it's crazy how much choice is in this game, and it definitely makes for a replayable experience, but also a great experience. You know, depending on what choices you make, you feel like you actually affected your story, which you do. Okay, I'm gushing over it, but you do affect the story. Things that you do can affect the story. You know, QTEs affect the story. If you go ahead and fail a QTE, someone gets away, someone dies, things like that. It's insane, because I remember watching an interview with the director, David Cage, the writer and director of the game. He said that in interactive games that tell a story, if you have a QTE sequence that if you fail, you get a game over, you're failing at, you know, telling a story. And he wanted it to be like, when you fail a QTE, the story keeps going on, okay? If someone beats you, they beat you in that story because you failed the QTE. You failed to fend them off. And the story continues from the perspective of you actually losing that fight. And that made it for a very, very, very more intense scenario, because I had the game unexperienced, because I wanted to have harder QTEs, and having those like hard QTEs makes for a more intense, like gut-wrenching like fight, okay? Like not knowing if you would actually win was a great experience, because you have to go ahead and press them really fast in order to survive. That was definitely one of my favorite parts, you know, playing a game with the QTEs, like fighting on the experience. The difficulty was definitely a bunch of fun. I did slip up a couple times, but none that actually led me to lose a battle, so that was pretty, you know, exciting as well. So I want to see what happens. I'm gonna replay it, of course, to see what happens when you like fail QTEs that you end up, you know, losing a battle or something like that. And it's very, 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 very cool to say. So that's my talk about the QTEs, the whole story with the QTEs and choices. They branch quite a lot, bunch of branches, man. It's crazy. Now, overall, I did enjoy the gameplay as well. You know, the gameplay was pretty much just, you know, walk around, explore your environment, and I love the whole when you press the R2 button, that you kind of like go into like a freeze frame, look around, you can see things that, you know, you can't normally see with your regular non-Android view. Of course, Blue Blood and, you know, the whole objectives, like things that you wouldn't really see, like various things you can go ahead and interact with. Those were very cool, because you do miss out on some things, and when you find something that actually affects the story, like look at here, okay, you can like go ahead and walk around, okay, and miss one thing. That one thing you might have missed was a gun in a drawer, and then later on in the game if you found that gun in the drawer, you can use that gun for a scene. That's insane. They accounted for all of this. You know, if you go ahead and miss that gun is not an option for you in the future. So that's pretty cool. That's so cool. That's very, very cool. I don't know, I'm gushing over this, but it is very, very cool. So that is that. I'm in awe of how awesome this game is. I don't know. Am I going too far in? You know, of course there were some, like, you know, tropes that are kind of expected, like at one scene where there's like two Connors and you're like, oh, which one's the real Connor? Oh, I'll ask you questions. But, you know, that's very like typical, but definitely doesn't feel out of place because it is possible in that world for the most part. So that was definitely incredible. For me, my choices, this is of course heavy spoilers right here. My choices, I got Connor killed once. For the most part, it was in the broadcast station where we were looking around, looking for clues at, you know, what happened when the androids took over and broadcast their message. Of course, I questioned the android, and it was so cool because I was like looking for which one it was, and I was like taunting them and like being like, "Oh, you did this, they got away," and I was like, I think it's this guy, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab him. And he runs away. He actually like stabs me, and then, you know, almost die. And then of course, you know, he tries to shoot Hank, so I jump in the way of Hank, I save him, and I die in the process. So that was pretty cool for me, at least, man. That was actually like, I was like, is Connor dead? But then of course he comes back because, you know, of course he is a non-deviant cyber life android. They can replace him, so that was like really cool for the most part. That's pretty awesome. So I feel like the risk was much higher for Kara and Marcus than Connor. You know, Connor's objective was to just go ahead and solve the investigation of these deviant androids by just, you know, looking around and making sure you get every single clue correct. Go ahead and catch every single criminal, every single deviant. While if you die, you get replaced and be like, okay, you failed this, do a better job next time. For Kara, it was much like a bigger threat because, you know, there was no replacing her. Okay, she was already deviant if you chose to, and that goes from there. Marcus, already deviant. If he dies, he dies. Okay, so that's why I felt like Marcus and Kara had a much bigger risk than Connor. Connor was definitely a bunch of fun, but, you know, the risk was much higher for Kara and Marcus. So that's just my thoughts and opinions on the game. Fantastic game. Can't wait to see what they do next, and hopefully Quantic Dream actually continues this type of game, like the whole branching choice type game, because Detroit took about like 4 years, like without the whole, like, they had to work on engine tech. Okay, I think 2 years on engine tech was what they're working on, and then the whole 4 years of actually production into Detroit Become Human. So if they can do that like consistently, like every like 4-6 years, a branching narrative like this, they would be the best devs that I've ever experienced. You know, overall, that's my opinions on everything for the most part. My ending I got was, of course, Connor, I had him go deviant and he broke free from the cyber life, you know, recall program, and he lived. Kara, she made it to Canada, lived of course with Alice and Luther across the border safely. And then for Marcus, he survived the protest. He lived, of course, ended up romancing North and living happily ever after. Okay, she was like violent and stuff, but she was like the best looking android. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, enough of that for the most part. Thank you all for watching this video talk about Detroit Become Human. That is about 17 minutes. The stuff might be cut out, so maybe around 16 minutes. So talking about this game for about 16 minutes, man, it was crazy. I love it so much. Anyways, thank you all for watching once again. I'm Inferno Kun. If you guys have enjoyed, go ahead and leave me a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on the channel, and maybe even some more Detroit Become Human live streams. I might live stream it in the next couple of months whenever I get good internet. Then I'll live stream the game, my replay of it, try to get as many endings as I can, because I want to replay it to death. Okay, anyways, thank you guys once again.